What up, guys? I'm back again with a movie review here for you. Yep, I finally got a chance to go out and watch a couple of movies. I saw The Accountant a couple of weeks ago, and you can check out my review for that, my written review for that over at neverendingradicaldude.com. I might be splitting review time between Never Ending Radical Dude and my YouTube stuff, just because what's the point in me going over stuff again when you can just catch it in one form or the other, whether written or in a video log. So I'll put the link for the Accountant review down below. I've got some original Accountant artwork to complement that. But for today, I figured this would be one of those reviews. First off, I'm not reviewing it for neverendingradicaldude.com, but I feel I would want to talk about this in a video anyways, because this was a movie I was really looking forward to. A movie that, from the first trailer and when I got a sense of what its visual palette was going to be like, I was very keen on experiencing in the theater. And that movie was, of course, Marvel's newest installment in their cinematic universe, Doctor Strange. Now, I'm not the biggest Doctor Strange fan, I'm going to be honest. I know basically the rundown of what the character's about. Brilliant surgeon, a little too headstrong or sure of his abilities, gets caught up in a very bad car accident or some kind of accident that damages his hands and basically his whole livelihood, so he seeks out enlightenment and a means to be able to contribute again or be able to regain use of his hands, and ends up learning the mystic arts and becoming Marvel's Sorcerer Supreme. I know kind of the rundown when it comes to what he tackles in the Marvel Universe. He tackles the mystical aspects, deals with characters such as, first off, spoilers ahead for a couple of plot points in the movie. Deals with characters like Dormammu, deals with characters like Mephisto and a couple of the entities that threaten the Marvel Universe on the spiritual plane or on the extra-dimensional plane. I knew kind of the basics of what Doctor Strange was about. Out of all the Marvel characters they've tackled so far in cinematic format, he's probably the one character I really knew nothing about aside from that setup. And it was very much an education to go into this movie not really knowing all the idiosyncrasies of the character's mythology or all of his supporting players, you know, by heart, essentially. When I walk into like a Spider-Man movie or even like a Captain America movie, I'm able to really go in with this encyclopedic knowledge of that character's universe already at my disposal. But with Doctor Strange, it very much was kind of a crash course in Doctor Strange for me, like getting caught up on what characters like Wong or Mordo or the Ancient One are all about. And I have to say, for something that was another Marvel origin story, it kept me thoroughly engaged throughout, and I was really entertained by what was going on in this film. Right out of the gate, the visual spectacle of this film on its own is worth the price of admission. This movie is going with designs and trying for really stunning visuals that we've only really been glimpsing at in other films before. It's the most ambitious film visually that Marvel has put out. I feel Ant-Man would probably come in second place to this now with what they were doing on the microscopic or quantum realm level. This takes it a step further and talks about parallel universes, mirror dimensions, dark dimensions, trippy sorcery and spell work that is coming into play. One of the visuals that really stands out to me from this viewing experience was the visual of when he's first introduced to when the Ancient One first kind of initiates him into the mystic arts or gives him a glimpse into what their world entails. He is floating through all these different dimensions, all these different settings, and then all of a sudden little hands start to branch out from his fingertips, like little arms, extensions of his own arms, and they just keep multiplying more and more. And it was the trippiest stuff you could imagine. It was really just surreal, and I mean, I was expecting them to make a reference to LSD at some point in this movie, and he does right after that experience. He's very much like, what was in that tea? Was that acid or something? I had a feeling like, yeah, this is going to be Marvel's trippiest film to date. It is a very colorful movie. Even though it's dealing with very kind of darker, drearier aspects of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, perhaps, it has a lot of bright colors to it, and a lot of dynamic colors going forward as well. The finale against Dormammu comes to mind very much so, because there's so many like just neon colors going on in this battle. I'm not gonna spoil that for you, but the final kind of battle, while it's not the most action-packed film or action-packed scene that Marvel's done, just on the visual aspect of it alone, it is spellbinding. Pun. As for the other aspects of this film, story-wise, as far as another Marvel origin movie goes, it does its job very well. It didn't really ever feel too slow for me. Okay, yeah, we're going on his soul-searching quest or anything like that. He gets into that mode pretty quick within the movie. I'd say you see him for about 10 minutes doing his regular Stephen Strange stuff, being the cocky head surgeon or neurosurgeon, being something of a layabout playboy, before he gets into his car accident, which, holy God, this car accident is way over the top. I'm surprised just his hands were messed up and he wasn't either paraplegic or dead after this, because this car crash is... Whew. And the kicker for it at the end, of course, at the end with the credits was, please drive responsibly. What's the message that they leave the credits on? It's like, please just drive responsibly, don't be reckless behind the wheel. No duh. That could go without saying for this movie. I think everyone would walk away from that scene with the car crash and to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go a nice quiet 25 miles an hour now. And I mean, it does have those comic book aspects where it is like, no one's gonna walk away from that car crash, but I mean, it's gotta be brutal, it's gotta be visceral. Yeah, of course it's gonna be kind of extravagant and over the top when he ricochets off of a friggin' mountain and ping-pongs around like generators and stuff before finally the car just smashes headfirst into a river. That happens very quickly in the film. Like, but it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, that's out of nowhere. We do get a sense of who Stephen Strange is, very entitled type of character, and then this happens where it completely just breaks down, shatters his self-image, shatters his confidence, shatters his ego to an extent, and then he has to go on this quest to kind of regain his ability and ends up gaining new abilities. And from there, you know, you get kind of the instruction under the Ancient One, a sort of rivalry with his fellow Sorcerer Mordo, but at the same time there is this budding like brotherly kind of connection they have. There is quite a bit of exposition in this movie, but I feel that's okay. It worked well in the film, and only at times did it really feel like, okay, they have to dump this exposition on us now, so that's why Wong is telling us all this stuff in rapid succession. Because even though we've had stuff like aliens, alien Norse gods with hammers, and their whole realm get explained to us in movies, this is something completely separate from that. This is more in the lines of magical beings and how they would work in this universe that's already been established. So to have some exposition going on, I feel, is perfectly fine for this type of film. It, like I said, it didn't ever feel like too much. It never felt like it was too much information for me to have to absorb at the time of the viewing. Like, I was just along for the ride with it, and okay, you're explaining to me who Mads Mikkelsen's what his motivation is. I get that now, and I get why there are sanctums and so forth, and what the deal is with the Ancient One, and why she is the Ancient One. So at no point did it ever feel like a colossal exposition dump. It felt like just the right amount of exposition dump. That sounds really nasty, I'm sorry. With regards to the cast in this, I had no problem with Benedict Cumberbatch being cast as Doctor Strange. Personally, when I first heard the news that they were going to do a Doctor Strange movie, when the rumors of casting first circulated, the pick that was kind of being tossed out there from time to time that I was more on board with was Joaquin Phoenix. But with what Benedict Cumberbatch has done with this role is it's very fun. I mean, it's a solid performance that you can build a whole new franchise around. He grounds it very much, not only with the character's motivations or with us taking him seriously as a leading man or leading protagonist, but also he anchors this movie in a lot of humor. And this movie, despite having to deal with sorcery and witchcraft and, you know, and dark dimensions and things like that, there is a lot of good humor but injected into the script that, you know, keeps the proceedings from taking themselves too seriously. Like, it's not Tony Stark levels of quipping and cultural referencing, but you can kind of tell that Stephen Strange and Tony Stark are somewhat cut from the same cloth. Strange has his own kind of way of coping with all this out there stuff. There are some pretty good payoffs throughout it. There's this running joke that he can never make Wong laugh, and when that joke does pay off, it doesn't hammer it on the head like, remember when he said this to Wong and Wong didn't laugh? It's subtle in that. Some other things, like he'll reference, like, your name is Wong? Like, just one word? Like, Beyonce? And Wong just gives him the stone face. He's like, you've had to have heard of Beyonce. Smash cut to Wong reading an ancient text. He's got headphones in his ears and he's listening to all the single ladies. So that is kind of funny. I do kind of appreciate that type of levity injected into the movie. Even if, you know, that's not really necessary levity, it works really well to kind of make the characters not always so serious or so dour all the time. Because if you took that stuff out of it, this would be a very kind of by the numbers fantasy type of dialogue, probably. The performances really add a little bit more to it than what you would expect from regular fantasy fare, like Seventh Son, for example. Ugh. But yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch does a really good job with this character. Like I said, within 10 minutes you get what this character's about, what path he's going to be on, and kind of what his redemption's going to be, but you're still along for the ride. And again, he's got a lot of humor involved in his role. I thought his American accent was going to be kind of distracting for me. After about his first scene with Rachel McAdams, I let it go immediately. That was kind of my big concern about the movie overall, was just his accent. Because not only am I just used to hearing Benedict Cumberbatch speak with a British accent, but when I've heard him portray the American accent in other films like 12 Years a Slave or like Black Mass, it's always another kind of stereotypical regional accent like Boston or something like that, and it gets a little too distracting. And I do have memories of Colin Firth's SNL skit where he was portraying Jude Law in Cold Mountain speaking with an American accent. He's like, very over the top, like just a very exaggerated, like Charles Nelson Riley type of dialect that probably some British actors think is our accent. For what he was doing in this movie, it worked well, even though I've always personally felt whenever I've read Doctor Strange in a comic book, I've always imagined him with a British accent anyway. You know what? It makes sense. If he was born and raised in America, born and raised in New York especially, yeah, what other accent would he have? And he does a good job with it, and it's never too distracting. And again, his performance overall outshines just the fact that, you know, he's putting on an American brogue. Chiwetel Ejiofor, I'm so glad he's in one of these movies. I'd always thought he'd make a great Black Panther, personally, since Chadwick Boseman's rocking it on that. I am glad that he's found a spot in one of these films. He's given a fair amount of exposition to have to deal with in this movie, but you get a sense of what the character's principles are about as well, and what ultimately is going to, spoilers, but if you know anything about the character of Mordo, you know he becomes a Doctor Strange villain, but what's going to set him on his path toward villainy and against his former friend, Doctor Strange. Rachel McAdams, I like her. I kind of feel maybe she was underutilized a little too much in this film as the token love interest, most definitely. But I mean, they give her stuff to do. She does help out, and she does prove to kind of be an invaluable asset to him at a certain point in the film. There's not a lot of her in the movie, but I feel with everything that they're trying to establish and with the origin itself front and center, giving her more than what she does in the movie probably would have been overkill. Then it's definitely something they can explore a little bit later. I mean, they do the classic. There are superhero tropes in here. They do the classic, we can't be together because it's my destiny to do this and da-da-da. So they leave it wide open for them to hook up later. It does feel like they're kind of parroting or echoing what Rosario Dawson is doing in the Netflix shows as Claire Temple with Rachel McAdams, and that kind of makes sense because, from what I understand, Rachel McAdams' character, Christine Palmer, I believe, like, she's actually the character of Night Nurse in the comics, who basically is the one who tends to superhero injuries, you know, beneath or behind closed doors. And that Claire Temple is sort of an amalgamation of the Night Nurse character and her own character. Maybe they purposefully were like, you know, let's not delve too much into this particular aspect of the character maybe, since we're already addressing that with another character in Daredevil and Luke Cage. I'm not sure because, as has been mentioned before in stuff like my Three Geeks podcast, the television and film departments might not necessarily always be on the same page. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if she does a quick walk-on in the Daredevil show, perhaps in the ER. Like, Claire's just like, "Oh, hi, Dr. Palmer," and then she just says hi and bye. Maybe that'd be kind of a cool thing for what she's given to do. I mean, I think she's a great actress. I've loved her in recent stuff like Spotlight and everything like that. And even though this is a very kind of by the numbers type of role maybe for this type of movie, she does a good job with it and is very I actually had a lot she got a lot of laughs from me. Like, there's this whole thing where she's trying to resuscitate Doctor Strange with a defibrillator. Meanwhile, in the same room in another dimension, he's having a fight with Scott Adkins on the astral plane. And so all this stuff, the lights are flickering and stuff's moving ever so slightly, but while the fight's going on in the astral plane, like, they're just knocking each other down, throwing each other around. Every time she defibrillates him, he gets supercharged and fries the dude. Whenever something like happens, like a light goes out or something falls over, she like freaks out really well to it. Yeah, so even though it's a very standard role, she makes the most of it. Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, I'd heard all about the whitewashing controversy regarding this particular character. While I very much, you know, fall on the idea of, yeah, why not have a little bit more diversity? Sure, why not make the Ancient One Asian, perhaps, and so forth. That would have worked just as well, I feel, but she's still a great actress, and the role is still handled very well with a lot of reverence and respect. So, and, I mean, they do credit saying, like, she's Celtic in origin, the Ancient One, so kind of saying, like, it doesn't have, even though we're all learning this particular focus that's rooted probably in Asia or in the Middle East and so forth, that it's accessible to everyone, which is kind of what they're building up in this universe, is that this power is accessible to anyone worthy of it, regardless of cultural background or ethnicity. There's your moral for the day, kids. I called what was going to happen with that character before I even went to the theater. I had a feeling that's the way it was going to go with that character, but even so, when something happens with the Ancient One, there's a lot of poignancy to it, and you do buy that she is semi-immortal. Mads Mikkelsen as the bad guy. God, this is the bad thing, is I just know him as Evil Mads Mikkelsen, or just Mads Mikkelsen, because between this, Le Chiffre, and Hannibal, I guess. Hannibal, he is my go-to bad guy every once in a while now, but he does a good job with it, and you can tell there's a lot of commitment to this type of what could have been just two-dimensional villainy. They do provide a good reason for why he's doing what he's doing, kind of disillusionment and heartbreak involved in his origins. When he has to kind of focus on that in his muahahaing moments and his monologuing, it comes across pretty well. So even though, again, I'm not gonna lie, the fact that I can't remember his name, it kind of puts him on par with, what's his name? Christopher Eccleston from Thor the Dark World, with his evil elf character. He is essentially just kind of the messenger for a higher power, but he left more of an impression on me than Christopher Eccleston did in that movie, just for the fact that Mads Mikkelsen sells people on this type of evil and makes it somewhat sympathetic. It might just be, you know, that has been kind of one of Marvel's biggest hindrances, I feel, is that they don't have memorable enough villains outside of one or two. Even though it is kind of a throwaway role, like with Rachel McAdams, Mads Mikkelsen elevates that material to make it very engaging in the actual viewing. That's really all I really want to divulge with regards to this movie, because I am recommending the movie. You know what? I might have to bump something off of my top 10 list for this to be on my top 10 of 2016. I don't know. There's still a couple of movies heading our way that might bump a lot of things off of my list. Rogue One, just based off of the movie theater going experience itself. Seeing all this fantastic imagery on the big screen is well worth the price of admission, well worth the 3D. This is one of those times where the 3D really didn't get to me afterwards, because it felt like they were really playing to the 3D's strengths. It wasn't just this atmospheric type of 3D that sometimes can be a little distracting to my eyes personally. This was like a full-out just trippy experience, and really kind of just this fabulous dynamic that was set up with regards to the production design and the way the action flows very well with the visuals here. I'm just impressed they were able to do like an entire action sequence with all the background and background characters occurring in reverse. Like, they're reversing time and at the same time fighting the villains in regular progression of time. It gets really out there and trippy. And like I said, even though the finale isn't like the big superhero Civil War fight we had earlier in the summer, it still is eye-catching enough. And this whole film is eye-catching. This whole film is put together very well for essentially just another origin story, but you don't really mind that so much with Marvel anymore. They got to set up their characters and they got to set up the rules for their different realms, but at least they do it in a fun way, you know? So that's really all I want to say about Doctor Strange. Is go see it in theaters if you haven't yet. Go see it in 3D. This is one of those 3D viewings I would recommend. And yeah, Eye of Agamotto.